Corsi from New Jersey Fair Tax. We're here on April 15th, 2017 in front of Trump Tower, New York City. We're here to talk to the president about real tax reform, not fake tax reform. This is the opportunity to change the tax code of America. The fair tax is a national consumption tax where everything would be taxed, everybody would pay, and ultimately it would lead to freedom for all Americans because you would receive 100% of your paycheck. The poor are taken care of via an item called the prebate. Don't fake tax reform. We demand real tax reform. We demand the fair tax. Bring back Made in America. Make drug dealers pay tax and untax the poor. Only the fair tax does this, and the fair tax adds rocket fuel to the economy. Don't settle for the Republican blueprint because it's going to go right back to where we are. It's the inside the box thinking of Washington, D.C. We need the fair tax. We need the fair tax now. So, Mr. Trump, if you're hearing us, you've got to get behind us, and you have to demand that Congress pass the fair tax. Thank you, Mr. Trump. Hi, this is Dave Corsi, New Jersey Fair Tax. Here to explain a little bit about what the fair tax is. Fair tax would replace our current tax system with a national consumption tax, meaning that all new goods and services will be taxed. The benefit of that is we do away with all income taxes, Social Security and Medicare taxes, estate taxes, corporate taxes. It's replaced with one national sales tax. Another great part is you'll never have to do another tax return as long as you live. You don't have to worry about putting together your deductions. You won't have to worry about the IRS coming to question you and possible audit. It's all done when you go to the store, you buy something, you are done. The fair tax will actually fund the government as much money, if not more, than we currently collect from the national income tax that we currently have. So we believe the fair tax is the way to go. We're here today in New York City in front of Trump Tower to talk to urge President Trump. When he said he really wants to do real tax reform, this is the real deal. We do not want to have a Band-Aid put over our current tax code and make believe that that is real tax reform. This country is in desperate need of real reform. We're urging the president to support it. We're urging members of Congress to do the right thing and stop worrying about the special interest and lobbyists and make the fair tax the law of the land. Thank you. Hi, this is Dave Corsi from New Jersey Fair Tax. And today I'm talking to Jim Bennett, who is on the National Committee and the Regional East Director for the Fair Tax. Jim, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Jim, could you explain to us what the fair tax is?
Sure. The fair tax is a bill in Congress, so it's not a pipe dream, and it's a national tax on all services and all new tangible goods sold at retail to a consumer in the United States. It replaces subtitles A, B, and C of the Internal Revenue Code. So those would be your business and individual income taxes, estate gift and generation skipping taxes, and your payroll and self-employment taxes. So they all get swept away, and because we don't have those taxes anymore, the funding for the IRS is phased out over a 3-year period, at the end of which all records must be destroyed except for those necessary to calculate Social Security benefits and those necessary to support ongoing litigation.
Okay, so then Social Security will still be in place. People will still receive their Social Security.
Absolutely. The fair tax is a revenue neutral measure, so the dollars from the replaced sections of the Internal Revenue Code are replaced dollar for dollar by the fair tax. And so the spending side of the equation doesn't change, only the revenue side.
So, if I understand correctly, a portion of whatever received in tax goes towards Medicare and Social Security.
Correct. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, defense, post office, court system, those all stay. It's just the way we collect tax that's changed. And now, if it's revenue neutral, why don't we just stay with the way things are now? And I'll give you two reasons: labor and capital. Labor and capital are the two ingredients that you need to grow an economy. And what the fair tax does is it stops taxing labor and capital and shifts the tax to consumption in a way that doesn't hurt consumption at all. In fact, most people will see their spending power increase once we have the fair tax.
Okay, question now. A lot of people are probably saying, sounds okay, but what about folks that are poor or low income? Are they hurt by the fair tax?
Very good question, because the fair tax is a consumption tax. Now, why is the fair tax fair to the poor and the sales tax not? The main reason is that there's a feature called the Family Consumption Allowance. And the Family Consumption Allowance is a refund in advance from the Social Security Administration. Remember, there's no more Internal Revenue Service to untax every household in America whose members are lawfully residing in the United States for spending up to the poverty level on necessities. So that's the main reason. There are a couple of other reasons. First of all, the fair tax takes many taxes embedded in the costs of goods and services out of the equation before imposing the tax. And the fair tax also eliminates the most regressive tax in our inventory, and those are Social Security and Medicare taxes. So those all go away. Those hurt the poor, and those taxes are no longer.
Great. Now, question though, so if corporate taxes are eliminated, that would make us more competitive around the world, I would believe, correct?
You bet. Because right now we have the highest corporate profits tax in the world, 35%. And under the fair tax, the corporate tax, and it doesn't matter whether you're talking about ExxonMobil or whether you're talking about a mom and pop store, they're taxed the same, and the tax goes down to zero. And it doesn't get much better than zero. And with a business tax of zero, the competitive advantage shifts to the home team right here in the United States.
Okay, so all the members of Congress, senators, congressmen, the president, when they talk about repatriation, it seems to me that if there's no corporate tax to be paid, U.S. international companies will rush to bring the money back home.
Yes, in fact, Alan Greenspan was once asked, if we had the fair tax, how long would it take to repatriate the offshore dollars, which are in the trillions? Would it take decades? Would it take years? And Alan Greenspan said, no, months. So we would see capital flowing back to the United States and investment in the United States. In fact, there's a study that says that in year one, domestic investment would rise by about 60 to 75%. So there's no question that the fair tax would bring jobs to the U.S. economy.
Okay, and one final question. So therefore, if all that money's coming back in, and in effect, people would control the tax they pay by what they purchase, am I correct?
Absolutely, because under today's tax, you don't control how much tax you pay and when you pay it, because you're taxed on your income. When the tax shifts to consumption, you're in charge up to a certain extent of how much tax you pay and when you pay tax, and I think that's the most attractive feature of the fair tax.
Great, Jim, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Jim, for folks who want to learn more about the fair tax, how can they go about it?
Sure, just go to the web, www.fairtax.gov. That's www.fairtax.org, or you can call 1-800-FAIR-TAX. New Jersey also has a site, www.fairtaxnj.org, and both of them have contact information for us.
Could be the most important thing that the local citizen who says, hey, this is a good idea, what can they do to make the fair tax a reality?
Let us know you're there, because what we want you to do is to get on our list, and that way you can get information about local events in New Jersey, and you can also support the national effort.
Okay, and to support the national effort, they should contact who?
That would be the 1-800-FAIRTAX.org number. Our president is Steve Hayes. He's very accessible, and so we'd like to have you, if you like what you hear, please get involved.
Do you think they should also maybe contact their members of Congress and the president?
Absolutely, yes, and usually that's easy to find. And contact, and you can. You'd have to get the Trump, the Trump contact information. But it's important because the one thing that's going to make the fair tax happen is if congressmen can see that their constituents support the fair tax. And you don't need a lot of people. You just need a few very passionate, active people.
Thank you, Jim. Hi, this is Dave Corsi, April 15th, 2017, for New Jersey Fair Tax. We're across the street from Trump Tower, and I'd like to address this to President Trump. President Trump, you've talked about draining the swamp, you've talked about the need for real reforms and not doing fake reforms, and we're urging you for that for the tax code. A lot of the plans that are called for are just, again, a Band-Aid over our current code. The tax code in this nation is destroying it. There is no way we will ever be able to pay our debt off using the current code. You have half the country not paying, you have the other half trying to figure out how to minimize their tax, and then you have the government trying to bring in more tax. Albert Einstein had said the most difficult thing for him to understand was the U.S. tax code. What he simply meant was, how can you expect to get more when you have two sides working against one another? So we're urging you to go with a tax plan that makes sense. We believe that is the fair tax. The fair tax is a national consumption tax based on all new goods and services. By putting that into place, you free the American people, you free the American worker, and it will replace income taxes, Social Security taxes, corporate taxes, and estate taxes. That will help make our nation grow. The fact that there will be no corporate taxes would mean all those U.S. corporations who are holding money overseas will now have no reason to. They will start bringing the money back to America. Let's turn around and start getting America back where it should be. Let's get real tax reform. Mr. President, we strongly urge you to do this. This country desperately needs that. Please show the courage and the guts to show them that we're going to do this, and we're going to do it the right way. Fair tax is the way to go. Thank you.